Hey everyone, I'm Anthony Navarro. I'm the project lead for the self-driving car Nanodegree. Some of you might recognize me as a fellow student, or I also led the self-driving car race team that Oliver put together here a few months ago. Welcome to term one. It's exciting to start. I remember being there, and it's a very exciting program. So I'm going to take some time to kind of walk you guys through the classroom, get you familiar with everything, let you know all the content that you're going to be seeing, and then we'll do some questions and answers at the end to let me know if you have anything to talk about. So let me get all that set up real quick. So this is what you'll see in term one. You'll log in. You'll see the course curriculum on the left-hand side. The other terms will be locked until you complete term one. You have all the content here on the right-hand side. On the far left, you can get back to your Udacity classroom, courses, the course catalog. You can look at your profile. And then you've also got this mentorship button, which will pop up a little mentor window right here that you can reach out to your mentor. Now, everybody has an in-classroom mentor. They are there to kind of ask questions to, kind of set expectations. They have about 24 hours that they're expected to respond to you, or within 24 hours. So it's not going to be immediate help. If you kind of need immediate help, go to Slack. And Slack, you should have received an email with the Slack link in there. The community out there is really great. And hopefully somebody can get your question answered on that. We will be transitioning to a new version of help called Live Help. That might help, or you might see that more in term two versus term one, but just be aware that there's something else going to be on the horizon, so the mentorship model will change a little bit in the future. So here's what you have. You have all your different lessons. So if you were, let's start with the first one. What you would do is you just, easy enough, you click on the classroom. It'll take you to a list of different videos, pages, everything. And you'll watch everything here. We don't want to actually watch it, but all of that content's actually there, and you'll go through them in a linear fashion. And if you want to download the videos for offline use, if you want to get to the forums, you can also see all the links under this little folder icon to the left. So once you get through the welcome, the first project that you're going to work on is finding lane lines. This is really to get you just kind of introduced to what the course is going to contain, the format of everything, and get you started on your first project. It's a really exciting, kind of fun project to learn how to do. There are also, you'll see some extracurricular things in here like career services. You probably don't need to worry about them as much in the beginning. It's good to learn what's available to you, but as you go through the course, as you complete the terms, that's going to definitely be more how you get those jobs, what's available out there, and working with all of our different partners. Going forward, we're going to get to the neural network section. So if you're not familiar with that, you'll get a good introduction to neural networks. Following that, there's this module called MiniFlow. Now, MiniFlow is basically like our from-scratch library for TensorFlow. So TensorFlow is one of Google's deep learning libraries. And this one, you just learn a little bit more before you use the TensorFlow library. You learn a little bit more about what's underneath to actually go into this kind of a library. And then we will introduce you to TensorFlow proper. You'll learn more about what a deep neural network is, how they work, how the layers, how you structure the different layers, how they interact, what convolutional neural networks do, and why we use them for image classification and basically any kind of image processing. And then you have your next project, which is the traffic sign classifier. This is where you really get your first hands on a deep learning project. And if you're not familiar with deep learning, don't worry. I wasn't really familiar with it either before I took this course. And it's really fun to kind of learn everything that goes into that. Following that, we get into Keras. And Keras is a really nice language because it kind of is a wrapper around TensorFlow that will make it much easier to prototype some of your networks. If you're going to really get into this in the future, TensorFlow does give you a lot of optimization at the GPU or CPU level, but Keras is really nice for just that fast prototype, get it out there and make it work. You learn about transfer learning, which is how you take, a network architecture that's already been trained, and then how you transfer it to some kind of new application. And then you have behavioral cloning, which honestly, in the first term, this was my favorite project. You get to send a car around a track and make sure it stays on that. That was also when we did the race team. This is kind of the physical project that we did. We took a physical car and actually moved it around a track. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of challenge, and you'll probably find yourself messing with it for a while, trying to get it to work right. So just make sure you keep on things early to get them done. Then we're going to go into advanced lane finding. So kind of the same thing you did with the first project, where you do a little bit of, intro to lane finding. Here we're going to actually take you to a more robust method to do that, and teach you a little bit more about how to do it more reliably. Then we'll start getting into a little bit more of machine learning. You'll hear about how Stanley did some of his stuff, and if you're not familiar with Stanley, definitely there'll be some videos in here, but definitely check out YouTube videos and everything about the Grant Challenge. This is obviously what Sebastian, did, and him and his team did a great job on this. So next spot will be support vector machines and decision trees. Then the final project you're going to get into is vehicle detection and tracking. So there's also the ability to tie in some of the final two projects together. There were some really great project submissions in the cohorts that I was in that just even blew me away. There's some people that have a great background and go above and beyond. And there's these minimum requirements in all the projects, but try to push it. Try to push yourself. Try to push your ability. It really helps you to stand out amongst employers when you're going to go show off your project. Doing something different than the other 5 people that have been on this, that they've interviewed, maybe that have completed this course, that'll help you stand apart. And then it's the end. And then you'll be ready for term 2. Not going to go quite as fast as that, but it's definitely going to be fun and exciting. So one thing I want to cover is how the deadlines work. So if you look in the classroom, you'll see various deadlines on the projects. The deadlines are kind of a soft deadline. We want you, they keep, for the projects, they keep you on pace. They keep you, kind of a good estimate of when you should be completing these. But in the end, what's really important is that term end. That's when the term ends. Right now, I think there's currently an extension, but if you can't make that, but that's not going to always be there. Maybe in future cohorts. So don't try to rely on that. Try to get your projects done before the end of the term. Now, if you have to, life gets busy, if you have to skip a little bit, fall behind, just try to keep up and try to catch back up and try to hit those project deadlines as well as you can. And let me see if I can, if you're not familiar with our hiring partners, we do have a whole lot of hiring partners, including NVIDIA, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Diddy, Lockheed Martin, just tons of partners that we can, that you'll end up being either seeing content from, seeing some challenges from, or hopefully getting an interview for. So there are students that, we're out of term 1 that have, new jobs in this kind of industry. So, keep pushing it and see what you can achieve. I'm going to switch over to the YouTube channel now and hopefully get some questions from you guys. So I don't want to be the only one here talking. So let's see if we have lunch. I have seen this. I see you guys talking about the mentor piece being repeated in classrooms. I have seen that actually, even on my own thing when I was as a student. So that's something we'll look into. I don't know why the mentor piece is there. But honestly, work on Slack and look at the forums for immediate help that you need. That'll give you a good start. So we've got a question about how many hours you expect from us. We like to say it's about a 10-hour-a-week course, but it really depends on your background. Depending on what you're coming from, depending on what you're familiar with, it's going to be more, it's going to be less. So, I would say start early in the week, get everything kind of under wraps, get a feel for how the course is going to go for you, and then you can adjust from there. But definitely expect it's going to be a little bit more busy, and projects 2 and 3 are probably some of the busier ones because, at least for me, there was less familiarity with that deep learning side of things, and TensorFlow and Keras and things like that. So it took a little bit more time to learn. As far as the LiDAR data goes, in the first term, I don't believe any of the projects really rely on LiDAR data. As you get into the second term, you're going to be doing more with LiDAR, but most of this LiDAR data, point clouds, things like that, especially as you get into like the common filters and areas and of that nature. But in the first projects, you're going to be, or in the first term, you're really going to be focusing on imagery. So, and how some of the computer vision that goes along with that, and then using those in your neural networks. Kind of have a few more questions. Is everybody excited to get in there? How are projects being marked? I don't know exactly what you mean by that. There is, next to the projects, you'll see the number, there's like a number for the courses. You'll see a P next to the projects, and then they also say project on them. But that, I think if that's what you mean, that's how I guess they're marked. What do you expect us to know before studying, before the studying of the course, before the starting of the course? Really hope you have some like knowledge and probability. If you have an understanding of computer vision, if you've ever done anything with computer vision, that will be helpful. If you've done areas of AI and machine learning, that will help. Definitely some of the math background. And then we also have some links through the course that will help take you to some of our like free courses and other pieces that if you need to kind of get that additional training. Do you need to install Ubuntu OS for the Nanodegree? You don't. I personally prefer that. It saves me from having to run in Docker or in a virtual machine or anything like that. But no, you don't have to install Ubuntu. Do you need to travel during the term for any project? Nope, you don't need to travel. Everything you can do through your browser. So, is there a car simulator that we'll use in the class? Yes, there is. I think it comes around in term or project 3. So you will end up downloading that and using that. Are we going to use a virtual environment? If you would like to, but it's definitely not a requirement for you to use that. What does the mentor do? So your mentor is there to kind of answer questions for you. Maybe you feel kind of shy or you don't want to ask a question in a broad audience like Slack, but just know that your mentor is somewhere in the world that may not be on your time zone. And so they usually have about a 24-hour turnaround for their time, but they are there for you to ask any question to and, address any of your needs. Okay, for the grading, that's how the projects are marked. For grading, every project you'll see a rubric as you go to submit the project, or before you submit the project, when you go to do the project, you'll see a rubric. And that rubric will give you kind of parameters you have to hit to pass the project. Is there anything on route optimization? Not in this term. We are doing more in path planning and other things in future terms, but this one does not have path optimization or route optimization. Giving us credit for training, actually we'll have to ask, or if Lisbeth happens to know on that one, just because there was that early for the very first cohorts, I think, but I don't know if that's something that was continued. It will be helpful to have a GPU. If you don't have a computer that you could expect to take a lot longer to train your networks. Yes, for OpenCV, there will be some use of OpenCV in this course, or in this term. There are additional courses linked in the projects from what I've seen. And then we also have you can also look up some stuff outside of the classroom as well. So to address it, why would we be using OpenCV if we're using deep learning? The whole curriculum is not just deep learning. We are doing both deep learning and computer vision. So deep learning doesn't solve all the problems in self-driving cars. So we're approaching it from the traditional robotics standpoint, computer vision, as well as the deep learning side. So we will be using OpenCV. So since there's a difference of time zones, do you record videos like this one? Yes, this will be recorded, so you can go back and other people can, everybody can see it. There are some instructions to setting up your own GPU on your own machine. And we can't support all of that, but we do have some general instructions. It does take a little bit to get used to doing that. The first time I did it, I think I did it. The second time I did it went much faster, but the first time definitely took me a little bit because Ubuntu doesn't always play nice with NVIDIA graphics cards, so just be prepared for that. There are, so somebody was asking if hiring partners are interested in hiring students from term one. They definitely are. It really depends on your background. If you kind of are coming from something completely different, have never worked in self-driving cars, it may be a little bit harder for you just to do term one and get that job. But our hiring partners have hired people in the middle of term one, in the middle of term two, and well, term three just started, but obviously they'll hire at the end of term three as well. There is not a job guarantee on self-driving cars. That was kind of a different model that we had done before, but this one does not have a job guarantee on it. So there's a question about the opportunity with working with Udacity's physical self-driving car. So at the end of term three, you will be able to put your code on the actual physical car that we have here. We're actually finishing up those projects right now so that our first cohort that goes through term three will be able to do that. So it is pretty exciting and we're working towards that. In term one, you won't be doing any of that though, sorry. And if as far as that final project goes, it's going to be loading the code remotely. It won't be on site. We are looking at if students are in the area and they want to kind of see their code running on the car, about how to support that. But currently, the plan is to have it all done remotely. And look at that, Elizabeth says everybody gets $50 in AWS credits, so that's great. The option to be reviewers and mentors after completing term one. I don't know what the current status of reviewers and mentors are, but yes, there should be those opportunities. I did mention though that our reviewing model is going to be changing, or sorry, our mentor model will be changing to a live help model. So we'll see how that plays out. What suggestions do I have for going above and beyond in the projects? So to go above and beyond in the projects, what I would really focus on make sure you focus on first completing behind because they worry about trying to do more than the minimum and then don't even finish the minimum. So get to the point of just being able to complete the project and do a good project. Beyond that, if there's the performance, if there are things, I know somebody who tied in Unity graphics as well with that, and so or as well with their project, so they were able to actually make a sphere that went around the car, or a bounding box around the car, like a bounding cube. Really just be creative. I mean, if you meet the minimum, everybody who goes through this program is going to meet the minimum. How do you go above and beyond to stand out? Be creative and solve it in an interesting way if you can. There's also ways to go. Some of the final projects in this term, you use computer vision. If you were to use deep learning to solve, use the methods you just learned about deep learning to kind of solve it in conjunction, maybe that can be another way. The programming language in this course or in this term is going to be Python. However, the next two terms will be mainly C++. Sorry, reading through some questions right now. Udacity does definitely, well, we don't necessarily help you get an interview, but we put your name out to employers. And I've been on the partner side as well. When we look at them, we look for a lot of different traits. There are many attributes we look for in addition to having this Nanodegree. And then going from there, it's, we're going to try to tee you up as best as we can. And then it's up for you to knock it out of the park and, do the interview, show the employers what you have. So we have Harsha asking about getting a little bit of support to creating a distributed TensorFlow or clustering. So that would be some of your best bet with that would be actually go to the Slack channels. We don't really have the bandwidth to support kind of one-off support, but the Slack channel, there's a huge community out there. They're really great, and so they can probably help you out with that. Do you have any recommended textbooks? The only deep learning textbook that I've seen is by Ian Goodfellow, which is actually I really like reading through it. It goes on some of the math, it goes on some of the machine learning concepts, and then it goes into neural networks and deep learning. So I think it's a really good book. I would definitely check that one out. I'm sure there's some good computer vision ones as well. If you want to get, Sebastian Throne has a probabilistic robotics book that you can look at that is older, but I mean, it's still really good. I see it on many, many desks. How many hours are needed for the project? Again, how many hours it takes to do each one of these is pretty hard to determine. It really depends on you, but we do aim to have 10 hours a week going through the course. So really just look at the dates and try to stay on that schedule and realize early on how many hours it's going to take you to actually get through that. I'm actually not 100% sure how many students have signed up for the cohort, but it's less than 10,000 for this cohort. I can tell you that. And the book that I was just talking about I think it's just called Deep Learning. So if you go to Amazon and you search Deep Learning book, it's just came out, I think, at the end of last year, so it's a really recent book. So, yep, there you go. Thanks for the mention there. All right, any last minute questions before I get out of here? I'm really excited. I'm hoping you guys are too. This is a really fun course. It does take some time and it does take some dedication, but get ready and just give it your all. It's a lot of fun, and you haven't even seen the great stuff yet. I mean, term 2, term 3, putting your own code on the car, it's a really good time. So definitely give it in and have fun. I mean, it's a great course. So, all right, well, thank you very much.